The rain fell in silver curtains that night, streaking against the tall glass windows of the city's most exclusive restaurant. Inside, laughter mingled with the soft jazz. Crystal glasses clinked, and the glow of chandeliers reflected in every corner. But for Evelyn Hart, CEO of one of the biggest tech firms in the city, the evening felt like another hollow attempt at pretending she wasn't lonely. Across from her sat a man she had never met before. Daniel Reed, a single father, dressed neatly but modestly, his suit clearly not designer, his hands rough like someone used to fixing things rather than signing contracts. The moment he smiled shyly and said, "It's been a while since I've been on a date," Evelyn's assistant's words echoed in her mind. "Just give him a chance. He's a friend of my cousin's. A good guy." But sitting there, Evelyn couldn't help but think this was a mistake. She was used to men who bragged about their cars, their wealth, their yachts, not men who came to dinner in an old sedan and offered her a small, nervous smile, and yet something in his eyes, warm, steady, kind, unsettled her. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe for more emotional and life-changing stories that touch the heart. As the night went on, conversation trickled slowly. Daniel talked about his daughter, Lily, who was 8 and loved to draw, and about his late wife who had passed away from cancer 3 years ago. He mentioned his job, a part-time mechanic who did freelance security system installations to make ends meet. Evelyn listened politely, offering a polite nod here and there, but her mind wandered. This isn't my world, she thought. We have nothing in common. When Daniel mentioned how Lily liked to make breakfast art, every Sunday, turning pancakes into smiley faces, Evelyn found herself chuckling despite herself. He laughed too, a genuine warm sound that filled the space between them. For a fleeting second, the armor she wore every day, her power suits, her CEO titles, her cold composure, began to crack. Then, the waiter brought the bill. Evelyn instinctively reached for her card, but Daniel quickly placed his hand on it. "No," he said softly, "I asked you out. This one's on me." She almost laughed. The meal probably cost half his week's income. "That's really not necessary," she said. But he insisted, his tone respectful, not proud, just sincere. "It's how I was raised," he said simply. When he left to pay, the waiter, recognizing Evelyn, gave a small, awkward smile. "Not your usual type, hum his heart," he joked. Evelyn smiled faintly, but that comment stung deeper than it should have. Because he was right, she was judging him, and that bothered her more than she wanted to admit. A week passed. Evelyn went back to her empire, meetings, deadlines, and 100 unread emails. Yet, she couldn't stop thinking about Daniel, about how he had looked at her. Not like the others did, not like she was a trophy or a status symbol, but like a person. Still, she pushed it away. Her world and his were too different. Then fate, or maybe life's strange sense of irony, decided otherwise. It was a Friday night when Evelyn's company held a charity gala in a downtown hotel. She arrived in a flowing silver gown, poised as always. The event was crowded with politicians, investors, and high-profile partners. Cameras flashed and reporters buzzed around her. But midway through her speech, the lights flickered, once, twice, and then went completely dark. Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted that the elevators weren't working. The sound of distant alarms echoed through the building. Panic spread like wildfire. A sudden explosion of heat followed, smoke pouring in from the lower floor. "Fire. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," Evelyn shouted into the mic, but chaos had already erupted. Security scrambled, people screamed, and the acrid smell of burning insulation filled the air. Evelyn's chest tightened. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead through the black smoke. Then she heard a familiar voice. "Evelyn! Evelyn, this way!" It was Daniel. She blinked through the haze, shocked to see him, his face smeared with soot, his eyes sharp and focused. He wasn't in a suit this time. He wore a fireproof vest, a walkie clipped to his shoulder. "What are you doing here?" she gasped. "I was working the security systems tonight. Your company hired my team," he said quickly, grabbing her hand. "Come on. We need to move, now." Evelyn hesitated, coughing, dizzy from the smoke. Daniel guided her through a back corridor, ducking low as flames licked along the walls. He moved with precision, calm under pressure. Every movement calculated. It was like watching someone trained for moments like this. When they reached a stairwell blocked by debris, he used a metal pipe to pry open a side door. "Stay behind me," he ordered. The tone was firm, protective, Not asking, commanding. They moved through the building's maintenance tunnels, and though Evelyn's designer heels were ruined, she barely noticed. Her heart pounded, but Daniel never let go of her hand. After what felt like hours, they reached a broken exit door. Daniel kicked it open, and cool air rushed in. Evelyn stumbled out, coughing hard, tears streaming from the smoke. The paramedics rushed to them, but Daniel turned back toward the building. "Where are you going?" she cried. "There are still people trapped on the 5th floor." He shouted over the noise. "I have to go?" Before she could stop him, he disappeared back inside. The fire raged for hours. Evelyn sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket, watching the building burn. Her heart twisted with guilt and fear. When Daniel finally emerged, carrying a young waiter over his shoulder, his clothes were scorched, his face blackened with ash. He collapsed just as he reached the street. Evelyn ran to him. "Daniel, please, someone help him," she screamed. The paramedics rushed in. He was breathing barely. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Evelyn climbed in beside him without hesitation. She held his hand the whole way to the hospital, tears falling silently. Daniel woke 2 days later, his arm in a sling, minor burns on his face. The first thing he saw was Evelyn asleep on a chair beside him, her hand still holding his. When she opened her eyes, she smiled weakly. "You saved all of them," she whispered. He shook his head. "Just did what anyone would." "No," she said firmly, "not anyone. You risked your life for people who didn't even know your name." He smiled faintly. "Was I'm used to fixing things. Sometimes even people." Her heart swelled at that. The CEO who had once looked down on him now saw the truth. Beneath the modest clothes and quiet demeanor was a man of courage, compassion, and honor. Over the next few weeks, she visited him often. She met Lily, who was as bright and sweet as her father described. The little girl gifted Evelyn a hand-drawn picture. Her dad in a cape, rescuing people. "Daddy's a hero," she said proudly. Evelyn could only nod through tears. As time passed, Evelyn found herself drawn to the simplicity of Daniel's world. Saturday pancakes, park picnics, laughter without pretense. He didn't try to impress her, he just was. And for the first time in years, Evelyn didn't have to be the CEO. She could just be Evelyn. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, they stood together on the rooftop of her company building, the very place that had once nearly taken their lives. She turned to him and said softly, "You know, I used to think success meant power, control. But now I know it's about people, about kindness, about hearts like yours." Daniel smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I used to think people like you lived in a different world. But maybe we're not so different after all." Evelyn leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. "You showed me what really matters," she whispered. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the hum of the city and the glow of 1,000 lights, Evelyn realized that sometimes the people we underestimate are the ones who save us, not just from danger, but from ourselves. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. Your support helps us share more stories that remind the world that love, courage, and kindness can change everything.